Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Okay. Okay. So, to dive into it, today's episode is very interestingly titled "A Body That Didn't Mind It Was a Soul." I did that on purpose, you know. A body that didn't mind it was a soul. What does that mean? That means objective beings realizing that beyond their subjective conclusions, reality is alive and it is well. There is this poet I often quote. His name is Rabindranath Tagore. He says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. And then there's a third part, but just to explain the first two, he's saying pretty much he opened his eyes in this world as a being, as a human being who felt that the meaning of this whole system of existence was joy, that it was about the individual's pleasure, it was about the individual's, it's like, what's going on with me? Do you see what I mean? Like, we open our eyes, self-obsessed. We're obsessed about, I mean, of course, we have to be in order to physically exist and survive. The person has to find food, water, shelter, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and whatnot. But it's just that we enter this life seeking to fill our stomachs, only to realize that our stomachs are temporary, and then we wonder what else can the energy fill, the energy of a lifetime. You see, he was asleep. Rabindranath Tagore, he's saying that in youth is asleep. It doesn't see the depth, you know, and it runs after joy because it's energetic. But then he says, I awoke. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. So after some point in the system of life, seeking joy, it was as if joy is the body's purpose, you know, pleasantness and whatnot. But when it comes to the mind's joy is service. The mind is not an object. It doesn't have sensation. It has work. Do you know that means your body's here in some sense to receive, the mind is here to express. That's a better way of saying the kind of pleasure we seek for our body, the hedonistic desires, you know. Everybody wants to have fun before they die, you know. And then comes the third part of the quote. So it goes, I'm just going to say it from the beginning. I awoke and saw, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted. I acted, and behold, service was joy. That means there is a level of just, basic joy that the youth runs after. Then there is a level of service, which is actually in contrast to that kind of joy. Then there is a service that upon completing is its own joy. Hence, I'm trying to say that we are in the universe, we are serving ourselves in the universe as a small part of the universe. Now we have to serve more than ourselves, you know? And that will bring joy. People are living for themselves, and in some sense, yes, it is true that there is liberties to individualism. There is many advantages to living in a dualistic civilization, but Why is the design here? This is the primal, I would tell you, it's pretty much the cosmological argument, but for the lens of human design and thought, where people are just wondering, why is it here now? Sometimes when I have problems and just things that before I even identify them as problems, it's like sometimes I wonder why my eyes are seeing what they're seeing. And it took me a while until I realized that it's karma. But what does karma mean? We are actually, since the beginning of our existence, we have been universal beings. It's just that we haven't had the consciousness, and the consciousness has now come from a very tiny part of, you can say, the universe into just a global part. Now we're on a rock. We're aware that we're on a rock. You know what's worse than being an ant on a rock? Not realizing you're an ant on a rock. That's the only worst thing. That means the fact that we had the humility and the audacity to recognize that we are small in the big is an advantage. Individualism is based on that. That's why the more humble you are, the easier it is to be an individual. The more you see you're the small and the big, in the outer realms, be humble. In the inner realms, you have to roar. And I honestly think anybody who's heard probably like more than 10 of these talks, you probably know what I mean. You see, it's we are, let us say, an atomic narrative has found us. That means there was a point where men felt they were walking, with the gods watching. And what were the gods? They were the greatest hopes. They might have been savage, ideologically limiting, but they were hope. They were, my grandmother told me a story of her grandfather back in the day, you know, and she told me her grandfather. So how would I say it? Like my grandmother on the mother's side. Anyways, pretty much it's like we have Iran, and then we have the Caspian Sea, and there was a place called Baku, if I remember correctly. So my grandmother's grandfather was from Baku or something, you know, and she had this story. She just remembered that she sorry guys, I was just drinking this ice cap. Pretty much she told me this story back in the day. Think about it this way: not a lot of libraries around, not a lot of anything around. People are using horseback to get to towns. And my grandmother was telling me the story of her grandfather, where her grandfather, I don't know if it was her father or grandfather, but the whole thing was, the point of it was that her let's say her father, I don't remember exactly, but the whole point of it was a religious kid in it, aged 15. He had to get on a horse and for 2 days ride to another town. And his father had given him a letter. So when he went to the other town, the people he met, he would give them to read that letter, and then the people would take care of the kid who was there. keep in mind, it's pretty much, guys. The story is my. I'm distracting myself with the details. Here's the story. Pretty much, my grandmother's father, let's say, um, when he was 15, he got on a horseback. It was a winter night. He went to this other town from Baku, to some other town that was there. When he went to the other town, midway, he finds himself in a forest at night, and there's a sense where I don't know if he has taken a pause or something. But my grandmother says he sees a wolf. Imagine you're like a 15-year-old kid on a horseback at night, going on horse to go to another town. At some point, you've maybe, I don't know, stopped by to get rest or something, and you see a wolf. And my grandmother was saying that when her father saw a wolf, he just for a second froze. She was telling me, she was telling me as if she had heard the story from him. But she said he freezes for a second, and he just shouts. He just shouts. Literally, imagine a 15-year-old kid doesn't know not doesn't know anything, but is literally staring at a wild animal at night. Do you know? And he doesn't know what to do. And there's a scene where he just shouts. My grandmother said he shouts. He was Islamic, and he just shouts God's name or something at the wolf. Just shouts God's name repetitively at this wolf, right? And something intense happens. The wolf freezes. He gets on his horse, gets out of there quickly. The wolf doesn't move from where it is. Some story like that. And that's the thing. I feel there is not just an evolutionary intelligence, I think there is an authorization. I feel like matter is like, this may sound strange, but matter is a pet of the mind. And the mind's instructions dictate how this pet moves. Not all the time, but you can instruct it. That means you can vocally, as a mind, shift the script before the moment expresses. The only way a body wouldn't mind it was a soul was that it remembered what it was. You see, anytime you remember who you are, you can suddenly work. Imagine you right now open your eyes, you're in a car you've never been in. Imagine you're inside a car you've never been in. So you're in this car and so unfamiliar with how it works, but realizing that the only way for the person who has suddenly opened their eyes in this vehicle of manifestation is to drive it. There is no other way. It's like the next levels of knowledge are purely experiential, and they are inner realm rhythmic based. That means I'm telling you, the scholars of the world, little do they know, they are turning into the melodies of knowledge. What that means is, it's as if like first Beethoven wrote the symphony, you know, and now it's reaching a point where poetically Beethoven is becoming the symphony. Human beings are analyzing their objective playground, their objective battlefield, and they are uh, observing their subjective playgrounds, and what is left is the new. That means when I have tried everything, I realize I still haven't tried something new. Because technically you can endlessly try. I feel that a new sense of service is going to find the human being, a new song of function, a new song of working in the realm. You know, we are working as ideological beings. We're not working as human beings. And the human being is a planetary being because we all know our design comes from the planet, you know? And you know what's so fascinating is that our hand, like for example, I wondered this, why is it that like oranges and apples, they are like they fit right for the hand? Why isn't it that it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like thinking, looking at nature and looking at, for example, an apple and holding an apple in your hand and being like, okay, there was a tree for an apple the size of my hand. You know, then you look at a watermelon and you're like, could it have been that there were beings that big where the watermelon was made exactly for the size of their palm? Can you imagine? There's clues everywhere. You can't be alive and not notice that this is a unique event. You know, and we take it out of its uniqueness by comparing it to things, by reducing something, you know. It's like we're telling ourselves Plato's noble lie, a white lie. You know, I had a philosophy teacher. This philosophy teacher asked the students about, he was pretty much explaining Plato's lie, like noble lie, which means it's like sometimes if it's ethical, it's okay to lie. You know, that was kind of Plato's notion. It's a noble lie. That means if like, and the teacher was, we were, the philosophy teacher had kind of, this was in high school, you know. I had by far the most laziest philosophy teacher, but he was incredible. He was an incredible teacher. He was literally Taoistic. He was literally like a Zen master, this philosophy teacher, you know. He would only engage the students when they had questions. Other than that, he would just give them an assignment, and the whole day, whole time in the class, kids are just talking to one another, you know. So I remember I was talking to someone. There was a classmate I had named Ruslan, and very, very, you know, bit savage-minded kid. But at the same time, like I remember, me and him were discussing, and there was one thing we came to an agreement that if there was a bomb that was hitting, imagine a child imagine a child in a unfortunate country situation at a time of war, and a bomb about to hit that country, and that young child just looks at the parent and it's like, parents, what's going on? And the parents are broken. It's as if they have already noticed the soullessness of the realm. You know, there is moments that I'm telling you, this life treats the moment as if it never was here. A violent person is literally a bewildered beast in emptiness, you know? And I will say, I don't know, at least from one person's mystical angle, for me, the inner realms do put things in order. It seems like in front of our eyes, we are designed to witness the chaos and the breaking. But in our inner realms, we're designed to witness the connection. So in your literally the eyes that look outward, they break. The eyes that look inward, they get fixed. In outwards is a destructive force. Not a destructive force, but Like the nature of objectivity being an object is that objects break. So it's an opportunity. Right now, every person alive is a rare cellular opportunity. And so now that you are this rare, sophisticated cellular opportunity, evolutionary opportunity, the person is wondering, what do I do? What am I? And all this. Imagine sometimes like, even though I entertain the notion of a philosopher alone is nothing. Did you know that? Did you know that all the branches, the reason they call it the branches of academia, the branches of knowledge, do you know? Because all these branches come to the same trunk. All thought is an expression of experience. So we are actually realizing that there is a realm of unspeakable as the whole moment event experience taking place. If you notice something very unique, the concept of the soul was inconceivable. Now, when you wonder to the human being, what is another inconceivable idea? The vastness of the world. The edge of the world is inconceivable. So the edge of human intelligence, they call it soul, is inconceivable. It's like the sky. Can you see its edge? Or are you defining its edge? Are we actually seeing reality? Or are we just connecting? Are we seeing reality, or are we defining our sight as reality? Two different things. Okay, guys, Charles says something nice. He says, eyes look outward equals differentiation, eyes look inward equals integration. Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it. Charles also says, gods were elemental forces, all things are composed of the gods. The gods were our molecules. I would say the gods, yeah, like the same, you're seeing it on an elemental level, as if every periodic element in the periodic table is its own. Can you imagine? It's like we have a periodic table, and then we have a periodic table of gods. Oh my God, I should attempt building this in this life. A periodic, an elemental based periodic table of history or mythology. What if we made all the gods in some sort of periodic table, correlating all mythological gods to various elements? I feel we are outgrowing our societal armor. I feel there's a force that we have underestimated that is going to be like a backup system for the species. It is how intelligence, just like when you drive a car, you see further ahead through the front window, like a Tetris game, you see what's coming and then you adjust. It's similar to that the human being will see what's coming and will get bored of its own future projection. That means those people who get bored, you're not actually bored. You're just playing you're playing a role of your mind. You can't get bored in a world so unknown. You're only bored to your own expectation of what you in the future want or don't want. If the future, sometimes I do this. Sometimes when I think about a problem, I think about it through a dimension of time. That means, how does the problem have meaning in accordance to what happened to the past? How does the problem have meaning in accordance to what happened to the future? How does the problem have then a meaning, regardless of just on the merit of it being present? That means if somebody like really, this was the biggest, one of the most crucial insights that I got, that I realized many mystics had failed. And they had failed because they could not keep the unknown unknown. That means very few beings can remain in the unknown as the unknown. Usually you bounce into a thought. You bounce back to a thought, you know? Some things can't be forced. They can't be even glorified. It doesn't matter even. Like the person may be worshiping something, like acting like, thinking they're in a sort of, they're doing something specific, but then they're going to suddenly see the world is a symphony with many instruments. You know what that means is it's like a person giving a talk, that talk not being recorded, that person first thinking, oh man, the talk is lost, then the person realizing that there is a universal memory at work where the content of the talk is coming from. So I am telling you, nothing is lost. It's just that we stop finding them in the same way. You know, we, as human beings, we created the Olympics. We cared about the most advanced efforts of the physical body of the human being, but we have not created a proper Olympics of the mind. You see, the activities of the mind. You don't know. It's like this. I could tell you. I have maybe asked 10 people on this. I mean, overall in my life, asked 10 people if they feel they're creative, and their answers, I could say maybe four of them, their answers were no. That means people don't realize they're creating their common sense. It's an identification. We have to realize that the world is echoing in a more malleable way behind our eyes. That sight enters these two stargates, and what happens to the solar is that it becomes solar, SOULAR. It becomes alive. So you can say what happens when life enters, the eyes of a creature: livelihood, worldhood, visibility. I like, for me, I am telling you, all of morality, every person who says morality is based on good and bad, let me tell you, the good and bad is just the visible and the invisible. It's light and darkness. That means our species hasn't realized that every person it has judged, every person it has glorified, it has just been there was more light in the room, there was less light in the room. When someone is dishonest, you distrust them. It's as if they have done so, they have become darker to you in regards to how you value them, you know? So morality is light and its absence. Pretty much, I call it on-off switch effect. That means when I speak to a person, I don't know how many people notice this, but if you speak, like right now as I'm speaking to you, I can archetypally, with a voice, speak as much as the breath allows. You see, it's literally like ocean waves. Our bodies may be particles vibrating, but our minds are events wavering. Honestly, I will tell you, the human mind is really like the mind, not the brain. The human mind is like it's okay. Check this out. Like imagine a candle flame and a candle. The flame of the candle is the brain, but the light of the flame is the inseparability of the mind that's simultaneously there, that is active. So we can say we have a transcendental organ. The brain is a transcendental organ. And I am telling you, we are living so many random lives. It's literally like a candle flame flickering without reason. Do you know? It just depends on the wind in the room. Sometimes people, their behavior has nothing to do with how good of a person they are or bad of a person they are. It's just how the events of the moment are taking place, and their intelligence has a certain range of probabilities and can entertain. You know, the glory, the greatness of human living is just efficiency. I can't see the neo morality being anything else. What is the biggest, one of the biggest book industries? You know, self help. People want to help themselves, not realizing. So let's say you helped yourself, your world is still tragic. That means it's like eating cake, you know, on the Titanic. When it's sinking, it's like, why are you eating cake? You know, it's like, why are you enjoying a moment where there should be a response to the situation? You see, it's no longer just you, the person can be in a world of their, in a park of their own inner realms only. You see, there was this thing that you have to have peace before you do an action, but what is the point of peace? Some people will say, imagine a peaceful, advanced civilization. It has been so peaceful, and then it's been so peaceful where now it's like, okay, we're not learning anything from this peace. Do you see? So when something becomes integrative and collective, it develops, 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 and the Tower of Babel breaks itself, technically. I remember it was one of the most goosebump like profound moments of my life. I was watching this YouTube video, and it was this yogi. And this yogi in this YouTube video was just shouting at this guy that somebody said it in the chat section. They say body is a vehicle house. Exactly. If the person was saying this body is my house, this body is my house, and the other person was like the secular not, you know, this person with a certain unique ethnocentrism at work. So the person wasn't understanding this guy. He's like, what do you mean your body's your house? You are your body. You know, like the person was freaking out, right? But it was so profound because the person was saying, think about it. When you live in a house, you can get out of it. And imagine this house is being demolished by time. Imagine you suddenly notice at some point in this realm, this house you have been, this structure of realism that you have been entertaining and living in will break. Then it comes the architect's last dance, where the architect, while he's in the house, just designs a design revolution of the mind that had looked at the body too long. The next instructions, the next chapter of our species, its commands are not in books. They are not in ink. Ink has served its time. The emergence of the collective knowers. That we are building an advanced civilization from the inside out. In order to establish an advanced awareness of communication, the person has to see all that, you have to see the room you're in, your inner realms. That means the person has to literally sit down, and based on how important and serious the true nature of meaning is for you, karma can become a resource station. We can create a civilization that has good karma, regardless of the negative karma of the individuals. We have to treat the civilization as an airplane, and we have to treat the inner realms as a plane of existence that our attention is its mobility. So I say that the advanced communicator is a human being that has realized they're the advanced communication of their universal sector simultaneously. You are the life of a singular body, but also there is a multidimensional mind living here. Now, this multidimensional mind is not bound to time. So there could be some human beings where behaviorally they're not meant to actually experience time in certain phases of their life. It's all about recognizing the living event. There is no superior knowledge on this planet than the living event. It has a voice of its own. It's like being a soldier on a battlefield and suddenly seeing the gentleness of nature and remembering who you were and who you will be are the same. The mind isn't an object, so we can't put the mind in time. The mind is where time lives. Time is relevant to us, you know there could be totally like a sort of subtler plane where you know disembodied points of attention are just spontaneously laughing as worlds when they see the human existence. you know we think we are small, yet we are the most advanced thing that this part of the universe has communicated. We are literally the light in our area. We are a lighthouse. And the best thing we can do is pretty much try to make Earth into some sort of headquarters for the interstellar efforts. That means we're fighting on the rock now. It's tragic. We're so behind. We're so behind. Sometimes I feel I was born like 400 years too soon. you know? Why? Because it's like it's still matter games. Matter is what matters now. But when we realize the mind suggests how the matter comes alive, then it becomes a totally different game. Then human beings, they would no longer believe in ghosts or like artificial, they won't play games with the unknown anymore. They will realize that they are antennas, and you will just treat yourself as an attributeless antenna where if you are still and silent, the moment signals and the moment can be noticed. And you don't understand how valuable the attention is. Your attention is the bridge between two worlds. Little do people realize. It is what connects the object and subject together. When I look at an object, it's a subject to me. When I'm not even seeing the object, that subject isn't an object. So I don't like technically people are different here. For me, my inner realms, like my eyes could be open or closed and I can visualize. I have learned that a sort of micro effort in the voice box can project thought in the inner realms. So it's movement based. That means really it's like I think of it this way. If there is a chance that there is something more than this body here, um, if the body uh, is the voice, technically death would be no longer an opportunity to have the same voice. And that's why I'm saying that people compare themselves to worlds that they actually never see, because everybody starts in their inner realms first. You have to forgive your mind for how it has walked to see it be able to give and walk again, because that is the nature of the realm. You can't just take, you can't just give. It's like there's a balance to things. I feel like like it's kind of mind-boggling for me sometimes when I remember I was giving a live stream and it said 45 viewers. Right now it's like 5 viewers, but it said like 45 viewers. And for a second I was like, holy, like am I speaking to a room of 45 people? It was like you know what I mean? It was like for a second my inner realms entertained the realism of it as if I was in a room of 45 people, and it was like totally different you know, response of the psyche, you know? A body that didn't mind it was a soul was because the soul had realized it wasn't a mind limited to a body. And the soul is the unknown variable. It is what we have forgotten. I mean, here's the thing. Voltaire is one of the most intelligent atheists in history. Voltaire. And he's actually one of the most unique writers. Like he was a polymath. He's a polymath in my mind, at least. The way I've read his quotes, I could totally see how his mind he has witnessed his own universal self. When you witness your own universal self, your desires of relating to others wipes away. And for the first time, you see the world event. You see how life is the grand happening. How now is where the voices perform. And it's fascinating. I want you to imagine, um, like, you know, sometimes, like, I remember being a kid and watching action movies, and you'd see like that SWAT team. You see that, like, those police forces going and saving the moment. It was like this incredible perception of human teamwork liberating its environment, right? Then I thought, why have we not had a force that defends and guards the human mind? That means, imagine you are walking in this strange town and you see something like a coliseum. Do you see? Imagine. But couple times bigger. And imagine you see on the top of it, it says, you know, Hall of the Advanced Communicators, School of Athens 2.0, imagine. And you go into this coliseum and you're like, oh my God, is this a gladiator arena? And you see inside of it is filled. Imagine something twice as bigger than the Colosseum, do you know? And in the center is like the interior design of the School of Athens, but without the walls, as if the walls weren't there and the whole Colosseum was watching the inside the school, you know? And imagine there the arrival of a force that advanced communicators are heroic efforts of the mind to stabilize a more efficient realm. That is it. We have to communicate our way from hell back to heaven. But this heaven was before earth, because I wondered a question that many, when you look at religious texts, it's like a mystery. That it said God made earth. You go ask anybody who's religious, you know, and they'll be like, yeah, yeah, God made earth. Yeah, man. You know? And here's the question. And this is Mr. Within's questions to all theologians worldwide, in all traditions, all religious sects. Where did the Creator create the universe? Is it so that earth is inside heaven? That man never fell. He fell to himself. As the kingdoms of the soul roar, rise the empires of the most advanced efforts of communication on this planet from all around the globe. for the first time, if the species is worthy, the great work, the great game is upon us. That man's purpose is to advance his position the furthest. We not only should consider ourselves universal beings, but we should treat outer space as our living room. And what if this whole cosmos is a living room? It's alive. It's an engine with a mind. We have of course, we see it more in Western uh, traditions, but we have the notion of, for example, heaven, you're on earth, and then there's hell, right? And from the religious, like in religious books, the way they have it, like, for example, if a Buddhist and a Christian were debating, they technically both would believe in reincarnation, but one of them believes you, it doesn't believe, call it reincarnation, they call it resurrection, and they feel it happens once. Abrahamic traditions, after the person dies, there's a resurrection. So you technically die in one way, but you suddenly are reanimated, and then you're judged. Do you know? So the phenomenal thing is you're judged based on how you judged yourself on earth. So technically, you're judged based on your own judgment. But they had the model of heaven, earth, hell, or hell, earth, heaven, past, present, future, even. And I would say in certain Zen traditions, they were so chill. They were so chill. They were like, hey, man, what is this? Like, it's as if hell didn't exist. It was just earth and heaven. It was the realm of objects and then the rhythms of the subjects. You see, silence is, for the mystic, it is 100% will be your teacher. But when it will be your teacher, that's a different thing. And imagine in the future we get bored of words and suddenly history becomes her story. And they'll be like, who's this her? And we'd say it's Gaia. That the person may not honor themselves, but you must honor your universal sector. You must honor your planet. You must honor the efforts of the simple. You should look at every insect, every living creature, and be like, holy shit, some force, animate force is moving around me. You know? And then once you recognize you are also an animate force, for the first time, from indirect conceptual satisfaction, the person moves to a direct, non-conceptual, non-dual awe. Literally, it's not satisfaction. We're not here to this in this world to just be satisfied. If you were satisfied, you'd be like a picture on a wall, never changing, and you'd die. You die to your own future self. That means if you don't try new, it's like, check this out. If the person lets the past judge them and they define themselves by the past, they technically have denied their future self. You see, we have to get out of our singular dimension suffering through multidimensionality. Then from multidimensionality, we become conscious as the space. So right now we're aware as matter in space moving. Then we will be aware of space which matter is in. Then we will be aware that space is moving matter. Then we will realize space is moving regardless of the matter. Then space will be the last body for the attention. And when attention separates from space, it is it is literally doesn't, there is no need to play the same game of intelligence. You go on through your through eyes before you it's not conceptual. That's my whole point. So if the person fears the irrational, you might feel like Atlas, you know, you might feel burdened. Eventually, guys, imagine we have a phase where it's his story, it's called history now. It's gonna be called her story for, like, you know, imagine as long as history was called. And I mean, that's too long, but like, but imagine we have her story, his story, her story, then we have their story. People are like, what is this? Let's just make it their story. All the random scribes in history, whoever they were that wrote the story, you know? So I think the true, what we call history today, will be called her story, then their story. And then eventually, yeah, their story is it. Their story is the most peaceful of the terms. You have to rekindle awe somehow. But the cool thing is, it's like if the person has a desire, if you desire to be like who people were back in the day, it's not necessary. Like, you miss out on the opportunity you have in this life. Even if you try to be something in the future, it's just fascinating. We've made the cosmos into a story, and we're like, it doesn't make sense, but we're the one who's put it in a story of language, you know. The species is freaking out over its own eyes, you know. So let's see how we could take this up a notch. I remember when I was like at the beginning when I was deciding the title, I thought about a body that didn't mind it was a soul, but then for a second I changed it. I wrote a soul that didn't mind it was a body. Then I thought that could be like a counter talk to it. Sometimes all the talks I give, when I look at the titles, I could totally see a reverse talk. Like every talk can be made into two talks, pretty much. Yeah. So if we were to think a soul that didn't mind it was a body, you know, it would literally be like a being that is not does it's you find multidimensional contentment. There we go. That's the next teaching. Multidimensional contentment through rhythmic inner intuitive abidance. You know, there's this story, there's this man in the woods. He's walking, he suddenly sees a tiger, and he's like, no way, is that a tiger? And then suddenly his brain really processes the moment. He's like, oh shit, it's a tiger, and he starts running, you know? And the tiger is chasing him, and he suddenly sees he's made a wrong turn, and he's at the edge of this cliff. He's running towards a cliff, and he sees there's a tree though. And then he sees the roots of this tree are like vines. Because the tiger can't climb, the guy quickly, he doesn't have time to get up. Like, if he goes up the tree, the tiger could bite him, pull him down. So he quickly goes and climbs down the vines of this tree, holding on to these vines and like literally looking down underneath him, and there's nothing, you know? And what happens? In that moment, the, what do you call it? Uh, two mice. One that is colored pure black, and one that is pure white, representing the yin-yang symbol. These two mice come and start chewing the wines, and this guy's like, what the this guy's like, holy shit, you know, who knew animals were you know, he's like, these animals are unnecessarily intelligent for this moment, what the fuck. It's like, these mice, you know, these mice are evil. Holy shit. You know, and the guy's like holding on to these vines, and these two mice, the black and white, are chewing on the vines, making the guy let go. And maybe the mice realized the guy's taking the whole tree down. The mice were like, sorry, buddy, we got to do this for the empire. You know, for the empires of karma, you know. And so what happens is that while the guy is there and he realizes he maybe has like a, you know, a very short time to be alive, and then he's gonna probably feel like Superman, then die, you know, then not feel so super, you know. And what happens is that in the middle of this, he looks to his side and he sees a strawberry bush. Like literally on the edge of the cliff, there's like the biggest, like the most nicest strawberry ever, you know? And in the middle of this chaos, this guy picks up the strawberry, takes a bite of this, and says, wow, what a tasty strawberry. And that's the end of the Zen story. The whole Zen story was a moral for life. That in this life you find yourself eventually at certain intensities, but then all you have is this sort of unconditional happiness by seeing what is there in the moment. You know? That means when we realize we're fragile creatures, we'll stop being animals and we'll use the privilege of living a life as a mind. That means, you know, parents should look at their kids, especially if the parent is living in a like a, you know, violent neighborhood, and be like, hey son, fools use their uh, uh, body as a weapon, but the intelligent use their mind. That means it's like, give yourself the permission to experience this world not as a body moving, howling a mind around that is mysterious, but as a conscious mind maneuvering and navigating the unconscious objective realm that is before you. So you see, we have to literally be like, yeah, put down. Literally, it's like a negotiation with a cornered animal. Do you know? It's like it's the most hardest type of negotiation with cornered animal psychology. You know, you can find this in your inner realms. You know, sometimes people who get stressed, the stress and thing is so intense because people don't realize when you judge yourself, you stop, your inner realms lose speed. If you believe even a judgment on yourself, you lose speed in your inner realms. What does that mean? That means you think you live as if there's a box on your head, you know? For me, it's like religion is language, is it not? Isn't everything that we are knowing language? So if the human being studies the nature of language, I feel that's the trunk where all the branches of knowledge come forth. There will come a day where linguistics will become the most important department of all educational institutions. Noam Chomsky is he's a hero of the species. That means literally, if you see language, first you're in a world, and then the world breaks. You see the world's temporary nature. then parts of you break as you live this life. The chinks in the armor are suggestions of levels of experience. And any person who focuses their attention on skill, that is before service. That means right now we're desiring objects, but when you desire subjects, that comes to practically skill. And skill is, let's say, an evolutionary step before service. Service is after you have a skill, now there is a reason to use it. Imagine there's a kid in there's a let's say a football coach sees this kid is like a bully. He sees this kid just tackles kids in the school ground. Then the coach is like, why the hell is this kid tackling kids? Why isn't he tackling, like, he brings that kid where he is expressing his energy and his expertise in a savage way. He takes that kid and puts him in a role of service. Do you know what that meant? That means many people feel the sort of back in the day where they would come and recruit soldiers as a bad thing. But it wasn't a bad thing. Imagine a village being harassed, by this messed up thug. Okay? Do you know? The messed up thug is the most energetic person in the village, so he's holding the big stick and he's taking advantage. Now, imagine there's a kid who's like, fuck this guy, we gotta take him down. Everybody in the village is planning on taking this guy down, but he is so savage and so like the lords of karma have bestowed him certain powers. You see that he, in some sense, is like literally that's how the moment is playing out. That's how the force is moving in the moment. Just like Star Wars, like the dude with a lightsaber, like, I don't know, killed 20 robots, and then the Sith Lord was like, holy shit, the Force is strongest in this guy. What he meant is that the moment wants him to go further. the realms of the known stand in front of our eyes, and the realms of the unknown stand behind our eyes. Behind our eyes, the mind is a non-local event. Location is only limited to the eyes of the body. If there's no light, there's no location. When the human being realizes that in the darkness of existence, there is a viewer, that witness and that mere contentment with just how that witness is, as Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the first the I am myself comes, then the I am myself goes, leaves. Then the I am all comes, then the I am all leaves. Then the I am comes. Then the I am leaves and nature is. So if the person can just for a moment see how the nature of the moment is before anything done, suddenly the Taoistic wisdoms open up to you. You suddenly see why Lao Tzu said action through inaction. The mind is the meanings mover. The mind is moving before the body needs to. If the body is still and silent and lets the mind conduct its work, the mind, after observing its environment, will strategize. So I can tell you that a lot of the content, even for this talk, is that I'm becoming sensitive to the edges of what I'm considering to be my consciousness, what I'm conscious of, what is real to me. When I wonder about the edge of the conscious, you come to this semi-strange state where you're watching objects and subjects at the same time. And you're noticing how because you're watching both dimensions from a different dimension, you can intersect the dimensions, integrate or separate. So what it is imagine like somebody with a sock puppet opening the mouth and of the sock puppet. Like there was this like Dutch comedian where he would come and do stand up, but then he would like put like, I don't know, lettuce or celery in the hand. Like he would wear a sock in his hand, like a sock puppet, and he would just give, like literally while he's telling his jokes as a stand-up comedian, he's feeding celery with one hand to the other hand's like sock puppet mouth or something, like some absurd stand-up comedy routine. But the whole point of it was like it's like watching the endless activity, the closing and opening of vision. And once we familiarize ourselves with the unknown and we make the unknown an ally, then knowledge becomes the great works, great service. That means if things don't work great, how can great things happen? That means if the person doesn't feel great doing an activity, then how could they expect the effect of that activity to be great? If you don't feel alive when you're doing something, you're pretty much echoing the lifeless. Sorry guys, I forgot to change the wallpaper. Guys, that story of the guy with the tiger chasing him, the strawberry always existed from the beginning. Even when the guy was being chased by the tiger, even when the mice were cutting the vines, the strawberry was always there. So that means in any inefficient moment, there's also an efficiency, but there's also the naturalhood of life where, like, if it's like, isn't it strange that we are from like a, like, here's the thing, we are calling ourselves an animal, but we're not behaving like one. So are we just an animal? It could totally be that consciousness is not human. The idea of what is human is in consciousness. It is in view. The spotlight has nothing to do with the actor, even though it's on the actor, the intelligence of the spotlight. And so I think I'm going to go into a quote tunnel right now of service. I'm just going to see how people have seen the idea of service. Dieter F. Uchtdorf. As we lose ourselves in the service of others, we discover our own lives and our own happiness. Howard Zinn. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. Og Mandino says, always render more and better service than is expected of you, no matter what your task may be. Shep Hyken. All of your customers are partners in your mission. Mahatma Gandhi. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This quote, it says from Anonymous, but it's a nice quote. It says, don't feel bad if people remember you only when they need you. Feel privileged that you are like a candle that comes to their mind when there's darkness. Cheryl A. Esplin. Service doesn't have to be big and grandiose to be meaningful and make a difference. Yes, the thing about service is just has to be honest. Because then it's responding to true information to the best of its filtering ability. Tim Fargo. Leadership is service, not position. Martin Luther King. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? I'm telling you, Martin Luther King, I think if he had attempted to write science fiction, he was seeing way ahead. He was seeing way ahead. When Buckminster Fuller says, we're going from the man now to the universe man. Not like hipster, the universe man. No, he's saying the universe man, the universal man. And I feel like Martin Luther King, his eyes were seeing a universal civilization, not a culturally differentiated, we are the breath in our lungs before we are the ideas that separate us. We are the simplicity of how this universe, without its colors, would be void. Like, we are so blessed we're not a civilization of clones. Yet it's strange because we have biologically that we're the same species, but in our inner realms, every person is different. So the human being has done the most advanced thing for its survival. Think about it. Like animals, they don't update their behavior because they don't have communication on that level, right? For example, a human being could see a volcano, lava, and come to other human beings and be like, holy shit, guys, let's get out of this town. There's lava coming, Maya Angelou says, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself, the other is for helping others. The other for helping others. Saint Francis de Sales says, Saint Francis de Sales says, there's nothing small in the service of God, says Saint Francis de Sales. There's nothing small in the service of God. And yeah, that means like whoever you are, start cultivating hidden karmic glory. What that means is literally think what an advanced civilization deserves and be that kind of person in the moment. I am telling you, your own inner realms get free. They get freed to use the abstraction. It's like you know what it is. It's like they. Sometimes I think like um, what a polymath is a person who, from one dimension, has discovered a truth that surpasses the multidimensional. Therefore, the truths from one dimension of their perception can instantly be allowed in other dimensions of their perception. So what does that mean? That means it's either one person doing multiple different things, or it's one thing having multiple different expressions. One grand attitude based on, I don't know why I feel saying this word, but the acclamation of truth, like, like it's like when you make a pizza, you gotta trust your hands, and when you want to live as the awareness of a multidimensional being, then it's not. Then it's like life's communication becomes more like symbiosis. So we don't need to just be incredibly pleasant to our world. We have to also be pleasant to our inner realms. The best thing is to like kind of have like see it like rapper lyrics, like like the inner realms, nothing to play with. Guys, something strange. Audrey Hepburn has a quote that's similar to Maya Angelou. She says, "You have two hands, one to help yourself, the second to help others." I'm pretty sure there was probably someone before also. Dr. Dorothy Height, without service, we would not have a strong quality of life. It's important to the person who serves as well as the recipient. It's the way in which we ourselves grow and develop. Stephen Sawalich says, help the life of one person and you can help the community. Douglas Adams, to give real service, you must add something which cannot be bought or measured or measures with money. Anonymous. I think okay, whatever, I'll read the quote. It says, when you are in the service of your fellow beings, you're in the service of God. Charles D. Gill, there are many wonderful things that will never be done if you don't do them. Wow. One of the best linguistic extractions of an inner event. Lynn Namka, love is action. Love in action is service to the world. Mary Osmond, being of service to others is what brings true happiness. Buddha, if you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path. Guys, the Tagore quote I started the talk with is here too. ATGW, I don't know what that is. Replace selfish striving with selfless service. Nina Hagen. Do some selfless service for people who are in need. Consider the whole picture, not just our little selves. Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins says, I want to be remembered as a great friend, an outstanding father, an amazing husband, and a good soul who always strived to serve God and man. And during that time of service on earth, I would like people to think he brought joy, love, opportunity, and a fulfillment to millions of people. You know, one of the most profound things about mysticism is when you realize everything you have considered to be outside of you is on some level being inseparable from the whole total event of your unconscious mind. The unconscious is like a circle, and then the conscious mind is a circle inside that circle. The unconscious surpasses. That means we like there is an unconscious life we're all living. That unconscious life is not only timeless, it is not fragmented, it is in accordance to rhythmic intelligence. So what that means is the species is going to go through a phase of a geometrical revolution, a geometrical evolutionary leap where the psychology of man from a character in a story will become geometry in the void again. From that geometry in the void, there will be a new kind of silence where from that new kind of silence, new languages will step out. Do you know? So you gotta let go of what's in your hands if you want to pick up something else. Ezra Taft Benson. If you really want to receive joy and happiness, then serve others with all your heart. Lift their burden and your own burden will be lighter. Kevin Hall says a life of significance is about serving those who need your gifts, your leadership, your purpose. Those who need you. And people don't need other people's leadership. People need alarm clocks to wake up. That's it. People need mirrors. I will tell you, if you can't see your leader in the mirror, then you are a follower of the unconscious. You're unconsciously being pushed around by life. You got to realize at some point we stabilize a position for the inner realms and we say the self. You know, that's honorable. You wear yourself throughout the day like armor. But you are not your armor. Remember that. You are more than your armor. Anonymous says, use your God-given gifts to serve others. Third, I think Anonymous is the person who made the website. The dude's like, I can't hold back. I gotta say some of my own shit. Earl Nightingale. Our rewards in life will always be in direct ratio to our service. And then Desmond Tutu. I believe it's Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. Arthur F. Sheldon. He profits most who serves best. And Mother Teresa, you know, dropping the microphone. She says, give your hands to service and your hearts to love. You know? I'm telling you, dishonesty tends to be a sign of cowardice. Honesty seems to be a sign of courage. So if you think that there's a natural honesty to nature, it's as if then that honesty has nothing to lose. Dishonesty has something to lose. The liar has something to lose for the whole curtain to be pulled. But for the person who's living a simple life, honesty is simplicity. or being aware at least how things start from a simple position and then they become complex in regards to how every action is like inputting code in the echo of how things happen, you know? So that's the thing, guys. Your world, this world doesn't need people to try to. The world doesn't have a mind. You are the mind of the world now. When I say the world doesn't have a mind, it doesn't have a dual mind. That means it's like you can, like poetry has a unique authorization with language that many other uh, forms of expression don't. The thing about poetry is poetry has dared make touch the extreme as paint. So you can say those poets where their poetry, me personally looking at, like I can't tell you how many poems from different people I've looked at in this life. What like I could tell you, like when you look at poetry, you would see that it's like a permission. It's literally certain held back expressions. What does that mean? That means, like, let's say the person was pushed, but then they were wise and they didn't push back. They come home, they grab a pen and they look at the blank page and imagine suddenly that same intensity of how they wanted to push back in that moment with that same intensity, as if the moment is repeating, the pen is held with that same intensity. So the person is going to be suddenly like, they got pushed and he's like, life pushed me. Imagine like the poet's emotion is turning into words. Life pushed me. And it was okay because life pushed me, in quotations. You see, it may be a lot of people are going towards what they desire. They don't realize if it's necessary. Socrates, it's called the three sieves of Socrates. He says these are three filters, that three lenses to filter before you communicate. He says, is it true? Is it kind? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? That means so many times I've wanted to tell people some things, but I've also realized it's not necessary. This is a passing moment. And I've dismissed the emotion of the event, you know. But sometimes, you know, I mean, I kind of think we're like, imagine like a snowball that's blue, and now imagine this blue snowball is going on purple snow. Okay, and it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Now eventually this blue snowball, right, which has now become covered in the purple throughout the day, comes home, and imagine all that purple suddenly breaks away. To live as a mind on this earth is the blessing, is a blessing. You see more out of your world when you actually wonder about it. But if wonder is forgotten, then we are dead before we can be alive. So, guys, I want to read a chapter from this book I wrote in 2015, uh, The Source of Language. It's an essay, like literally, it's a series of essays. The title is, I wrote this in 2015, 15 or 17, 15. Oh, sorry, 2017, I think. Anyways, the essay is called The Moment Has Said All. As letters from the trenches of modernity are found, survival is the work of a machine. Transcendence and integration is the work of an advanced living being. To study the source of your mind is to study the origin of a universe of manifestation that is now. Once the natural state is truly remembered, life will no longer be a phenomenon only individually associated. Rather, it will be a momentary acknowledgement of the beyond. Whether a supernova is witnessed by a sadhu or a scientist, the truth of the universe is beautifully fascinating. There is great union in great vision. Some mystics may reach a state of consciousness where God may be seen to be a pattern of the one memory of the collective cosmos. Are we a projection that never existed? Are we God's memory? Imagination cannot be false, for its design must exist to be witnessed by an existential intelligence. So if we are God remembering itself through the doors of science, religion, or spirituality's imagination, knowledge is not a backpack to carry. It is the truth of truths that must be self-realized. Would it surprise you that your moment of being is also a moment of being for the whole cosmos? Would it surprise you that... Oh my God, I think I'm looping. Oh, no. It's the same. Okay. No, all right, so I'll read that again. Would it surprise you that your moment of being is also a moment of being for the whole cosmos? Would it surprise you that your moment of being is your greatest teacher? Mind is samsara, and beyond such a world of relationships, the pilots of consciousness fly and navigate as all that is within all that is. In other words, the ego of the pilot does not belong to the pilot, but still for the advanced communicator, the ego is bound to an idea of self. The advanced communicator still wants to change the world. The pilot of consciousness is the change. This doesn't mean the intuitional capabilities of these different states are the same. And also the intentions of karma will differ for these beings. The world can be divided in two ways, the known and the unknown. Now these two are like two sides of a coin or two wings of a plane. They are codependently existent. All concepts of God are illusions. All experiences of God are God. A true devotee realizes that to truly abide by self is to observe the presence of God everywhere. It is the love of the divine that the beloved whispers in our cosmic ears at night. When you don't want anything from your moment, you get to see the beauty of the moment for what it is. It seems that only the fearless, desireless, and selfless truly live. Where is the tolerance that our species needs to advance to the next level? Some mystics prefer caves, others see the whole world as a cave to step out of. Either we prosper as mankind or fall as forgotten men. In the shadow of the failure of our species, who sees the light? Everyone's existence is a presence of energy that can remind the society of the world of its true nature. The rebels of the future will be those who plant trees without being given the seeds. Nature needs to be amplified in the eyes of all people. Trust your intuition. If every child planted a tree before graduating to the next year, and all children in the world from all nations did this, there would be a natural intervention in the eyes of a mechanically functioning society. How is consciousness more than language? Use your eyes well and see destinies dance within every moment. Let greatness remember itself through you. There is a love here that guides every moment of the cosmos. Language is for poets, and the poet is basking in the love of the whole world. Are you living in a world of peace or a cage of fear? And new consciousness can always be inspired by new language. Even though as a society we acknowledge a solid history, we at the same time are being inspired by the visions of many great people and minds of poets from other times. History is beautiful by the vision. History is beautifully repeating itself in every moment. For the energy and presence of this universal existence had nowhere to go, so it turned itself in one breath into ultimatum. As many branches of dimensions were grown, it was very hard for the falling leaf to contemplate the eternity of the roots. Could a Napoleon lecturer have an innate tendency to salute modernity's quest? Wisdom and insight is the path of the transcendentally destined. If life is an omnipresent moment, what does separate and individual intelligence mean? Either the whole cosmos is alive, or we were always in a dead illusion. Void without meaning, can a third eye truly be opened? When the games of duality end and the mind is quiet, enlightenment can truly be remembered. How does divine inspiration find the willing? What is within you that is also within all that is? As new language and its use rebels against a rusty cage from the past, it is very clear that life shall not be ignorant to life. Life is a holistic living presence. Is the whole atmosphere in an atom of our imagination? Beyond images, the moment has said all. End. The moment has said all. Everything the person is looking for, it's right here. Sometimes after you have the outer realm resources, then it's left to the inner realm vision. You could be a person who has a lot of energy, but you're not using that energy. You could be a person who doesn't have a lot of energy, but you're using a lot of energy throughout the day. You know what I mean? It's just like there isn't that much time, to be honest, on this planet. You have 100 years. We are a habitual creature. The less ideological you are, the more ideas you see, and at best civilization just becomes gentle enough to care for its inner realms. As the inner realms appear as uncharted territory, the species moves to a sort of mindset where, like, holy shit, back in the day we were hunter-gatherers. We would go like hunt buffalo and like, hey guys, we found buffalo meat. And people were like, holy shit, buffalo meat, is this real? Is this possible? People were freaking out in hunter-gatherer societies back in the day. But now it's like we have to have the same hunter-gathering attitude, but as a global tribe that is wondering about what the unknown is while the known is. And fear not your eyes, for they are destined for the greatest exploration this species has to offer the cosmos. You see, it's like we first serve ourselves, but if you only serve the individual, you don't see the collective. You're too zoomed in. It's like you went to see the Mona Lisa, but your eyes are like millimeters away and you can't see anything. They're millimeters away from the painting. You're like, I saw the Mona Lisa up close. I didn't see anything. But when you move back, you suddenly see. So many times in life, when a person feels it's a dead end, it's a stop, you have to zoom out. You have to find that ego vision where for a moment you just put the whole moment on pause and you're like, what is the design of this event that the I am is in. Beyond images, the moment has set off. A body that didn't mind it was a soul, was a universe that was serving itself. We are, or soon we will be, it's like we will become geometricians and then we will become galacticians. We will recognize that the design of existence is at once, but the experience of existence has been compartmentalized by all the different ways the human being has experienced their walk so far. So that means it's as if, like, are you wearing one shoe, one kind of shoes, if like uh, your feet are moving differently in the shoe. You know what I mean? So it's like you have the same shoes, but you're not wearing them the same way in the moment. It's like we are this one. We could treat ourselves as one being, but there's so many ways of the moment being kind of expressed. And it's this idea of the inseparability of even expression and reception, which takes you to the instantaneous. Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj, he says, when I see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I see that I am everything, that is love. And in between my life moves, as if he's an oscillation between everything and nothing. That's why the self feels like a simulation. Because two dimensions are being seen as one, and when weird things happen, we're like, whoa, why did this happen? Is there something else? So you can say it's like either man is not looking at the situation truthfully, or truth is not in the situation. These are the two options. I find these are the roads that we find ourselves. And if the human being, whoever you are, it doesn't matter if you're in a country with privilege or a country that doesn't privilege, you're on a planet, you know? You just have to street smart enough, but you have to concrete jungle smart enough. You know what I mean? And when you do, this doesn't mean viciousness. This doesn't mean demonstrating power. Do you know, for me, sometimes freedom has to do with an allowance of a recognition that mind, because it's not an object, it can't suffer like an object. You know? The viewer, the intelligence that is viewing the moment, is the moment. We are moving past the fractal age. There's no longer, I think in the future, life is gonna revert back to a singular unknown event. Now it's like fragmented into multidimensional known events. People think, I know this, I know that, I know this, I know that. We're just ants on a hill freaking out. You know? Yet, presence, how energy can't be created or destroyed, but it changes form to form. It's like there is a present existential energy, and the experience is changing form to form. So when you actually witness your whole moment, all the content of your moment occurring at once, you are actually no longer in a dual view. Anytime you can view duality, you are technically a non-dual witness of the moment. But if you see non-duality, you know, this is why it's like the light is in everybody's eyes. We just have to realize why the cosmic event is, you know, appearing in this way. That seems to be the, you know, we explore our inner realms, write honest journals, and create a global archive, a global network where we're not just studying visible design. We're also studying invisible design, inner technologies, right? And so the mind is based on an event. So we use, just like how, for example, you read a book, the language is suggesting different events. So when you read a book, in your mind, you're seeing a film, right? Each sentence is adding scenes, like to the film, right? So what does that mean? That means language is limited to revelation. Language is uh, how the how the uh, I would say okay, I would say language is the revelation of the event. So literally when you read a story, you get a revelation of what the author was sharing, right? Language is events are language to human beings. So we would say we have to pretty much start studying imagination. That's what I'm saying. We've ignored it because we've just identified with one side of the coin. You know, one side matter was here first, then the immaterial. The other perspective is immaterial here first, the other matter. So for me, when it's like all religious wars, you know, all the confrontations, conflicts between the religious and the non-religious mind, it's like fighting over cause and effects image. Beyond belief and disbelief, an advanced civilization has already opened its wings. Direct experience is the most powerful force. Being conscious of your moment, that you are alive right now and your unique genetical opportunity to contribute to something. I mean, like, you know, it's like I'm telling you, just try this out. One day, be like, you can be super selfish. Just try it out. One day, be super selfish, and one day, be completely selfless and see the karma. Literally, live a day where you're just giving. I'm telling you guys, try this out. Just live one day where you just give. Whatever happens, whatever, you know? Even if like randomly a homeless person came up to you and it's like, hey man, do you have $200? And that's like some ridiculous amount. Like if it's on that day, like you give that 200 or whatever, you know? I'm just saying, live where you are aware of nature's life. And service is really the eyes that open up to nature's hidden language. It's the higher dimensional. It's pretty much like uh, what you do after you have realized attention is supreme. So, anyways, guys, I hope this episode was helpful. Uh, much blessings, and for those interested, I'll be in the public Discord server for a little while. If anybody wants to discuss or has any questions about this, much blessings, and I'll say. And one last thing, there's this thing about the picture. If you look at the picture, I don't know who drew this, but whoever drew it, it's amazing. And if anybody knows, like, share the person's name so I give them proper credit. But it's in this photo we see, you see that again, that moth or butterfly. They say that's the one of the most precious divine feelings, when you don't chase a butterfly and the butterfly lands on you. Do you know? So that's the thing. as you live a day where you don't have too many opinions on the day, you begin to see the life of your world. And that becomes your teacher, how your moment is. For nature doesn't have problems. The cosmos doesn't have joy or depression. The cosmos is just chilling. You know, it's man who's freaking out. So, blessings, guys.